A woman is planning her perfect wedding. Everything's organized down to the last detail. Then someone slips something into her drink at the rehearsal dinner, and she wakes up on a mysterious island, married to a complete stranger who's calling her his wife and showing her a marriage certificate made of leaves and flowers. And what she discovered on that island, it changed everything she thought she knew about love, marriage, and what she really wanted from life. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. The person who drugged her, they weren't trying to hurt her. They were trying to save her from the biggest mistake of her life. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why she's actually grateful it happened. Her name is Chloe, and this is the story of how she accidentally found her soulmate and lost her mind in the process. Let me take you back to 3 days before what was supposed to be Chloe's dream wedding to Liam. Liam was perfect on paper. Successful lawyer, good families, stable income, wanted the same things she did. White picket fence, 2 kids, suburban house with a golden retriever, the whole American dream package, you know? They had been together for 3 years, and honestly, Chloe thought she loved him. She wanted to love him. He checked every box on her perfect husband list that she'd been writing in her head since she was like 12 years old. But as the wedding got closer, something felt off. Chloe would sit in her apartment surrounded by wedding planning binders, and yes, she had multiple binders, color-coded and everything, and just feel this crushing weight on her chest, like she couldn't breathe properly. Her maid of honor kept asking if she was getting cold feet, and Chloe kept saying no, because that's what you're supposed to say, right? But deep down, she was drowning in the sea of expectations and traditions that didn't feel like her. The rehearsal dinner was at this fancy country club that Liam's parents insisted on. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, the works. Chloe was wearing this tight, uncomfortable dress that his mother had suggested she wear, smiling until her face hurt, making small talk with relatives she'd maybe met twice. That's when she saw him. Leo. He was Liam's distant cousin, like really distant. They'd grown up together but hadn't seen each other in years. Leo had just moved back from traveling around the world, doing art installations or something equally impractical and romantic. And he looked different. Not different bad, but different like he belonged in a different world entirely. He had these paint stains on his fingers, wore a vintage button-up that was slightly wrinkled, and his hair looked like he had just run his hands through it. While everyone else was making polite conversation about stock portfolios and vacation homes, he was quietly sketching the floral arrangements on napkins. Chloe found herself watching him throughout dinner. Not in a romantic way, at least that's what she told herself, but because he seemed so calm, so comfortable in his own skin, while she felt like she was wearing a costume that didn't fit. That's when Leo appeared beside her. "You look like you're about to jump," he said, not unkindly. "I'm just getting some air." "You know," he said, leaning against the railing, "my Aunt Maeve always says that when someone looks like they're drowning on dry land, they usually are." Something about the way he said it made Chloe actually look at him. His eyes were this warm brown color, and they were looking at her like he could see right through the perfect bride facade she had been wearing all evening. "I'm fine," she said automatically. "Are you, though?" And that simple question almost broke her. Because no, she wasn't fine. She was terrified. She was getting married in 2 days to a man who was perfect for her own paper, but when she tried to imagine their future together, all she could see was this beige, predictable life stretching out forever. "You want to know something crazy?" Leo continued, pulling out a small, ornate glass bottle filled with this shimmering, iridescent liquid. "My Aunt Maeve, she's the family, let's call her the wise woman. She gave me this for tonight, said someone might need it." The liquid caught the moonlight and seemed to swirl with its own inner light. It was beautiful, almost hypnotic. "What is it?" Chloe asked. She calls it her calming elixir. It's supposed to help quiet all the noise in your head so you can hear what your heart is actually trying to tell you. Completely natural, all herbs and good intentions. He held it out to her. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we think we should want that we forget to ask ourselves what we actually do want. She should have said no. She should have politely declined and gone back inside to her perfectly planned life. But standing there on that balcony, feeling like she was suffocating in her own skin, that little bottle looked like a lifeline. "Is it safe?" she asked. "My family's been making this recipe for generations. Aunt Maeve says it just helps you, see clearly." So she took it. She drank that entire bottle of shimmering liquid, and you know what? For the first time in months, she felt this incredible sense of peace wash over her. Like all the anxiety and pressure just melted away. She remembers feeling so relaxed, so beautifully calm. Leo walked her back to her room, making sure she got there safely, and she fell asleep feeling more at peace than she had in years. What she didn't know, what Leo didn't tell her because he thought she already knew, was what that elixir actually was, and what it was about to do to her life. Chloe woke up to the sound of waves. Not the sound of her alarm clock, not the sound of traffic outside her apartment window. The sound of actual ocean waves lapping against a shore. Her eyes flew open, and instead of her familiar bedroom ceiling, she was staring up at a canopy of palm trees swaying in a warm breeze. The air smelt like jasmine and salt water, and she was lying on the softest sand she had ever felt in her life. She sat up so fast she got dizzy. She was wearing a flowing white linen dress that definitely wasn't what she'd worn to bed. Her hair was loose and had tiny white flowers woven through it. And she was on a beach that looked like something out of a fantasy movie. Crystal clear turquoise water, pristine white sand, and lush tropical vegetation everywhere she looked. "What the hell?" she whispered. "Good morning, my beautiful wife." She whipped around, and there was Leo, grinning at her like this was the most normal thing in the world. He was wearing white linen pants and no shirt, looking like some kind of beach god, and he was holding a marriage certificate, made of woven palm fronds and decorated with flowers. "Wife?" she screamed, scrambling to her feet. "What do you mean, wife? Where am I? What did you do to me?" Leo's smile faltered a little. "Chloe, you agreed to this. Last night when you drank Aunt Maeve's Dreamweaver's brew, you were accepting the invitation to our soul tie ceremony." "Soul tie what now?" "The ceremony. We were married at sunrise by Elder Solana. It was beautiful. You were radiant, and when you said your vows—" "I did not say any vows!" She was full on panicking now. "I don't remember any of this. The last thing I remember is falling asleep in my hotel room." Leo looked genuinely confused. "But you drank the brew. You accepted the call of the island. You can't accidentally end up here. The island only brings together souls that are meant to be united." That's when an older woman emerged from the tree line. She had long silver hair adorned with flowers, wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer in the morning light. She moved with this serene grace that made her seem almost otherworldly. "Ah, the new soulbound has awakened," she said in this melodious voice. "I am Elder Solana. Welcome to Isla Corazon, child." "I need to get off this island right now," Chloe said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's been a mistake. A huge, massive mistake." Elder Solana tilted her head, studying her with these ancient, knowing eyes. "The Dreamweaver's brew does not make mistakes, child. It only reveals what the heart already knows, but the mind refuses to see." And that's when Aunt Maeve appeared. I kid you not, she just materialized from behind a cluster of flowering bushes like she'd been there all along. She was this tiny, energetic woman in her 60s with wild gray curls and paint-stained fingers, wearing about 17 different bangles that jangled when she moved. "Chloe, darling," she exclaimed, rushing over to hug her like they were old friends. "Oh, you look absolutely radiant. The ceremony was perfect. I've never seen the sunrise spirits so pleased with the union." "What ceremony?" Chloe was on the verge of a complete breakdown. "I don't remember any ceremony. I was supposed to be getting married to Liam in 2 days, not to your nephew on some magical mystery island." Aunt Maeve's face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, then something that looked almost like guilt. "Oh my, oh my, oh my," she said softly. "What oh my?" Chloe demanded. "What does oh my mean?" Leo was looking between his aunt and Chloe with growing alarm. "Aunt Maeve, You said she knew. You said she understood what the brew was for. Well, I may have assumed that when someone drinks the entire bottle in one go, they're fully accepting the island's call. The entire bottle? Leo's eyes went wide. That's meant to be sipped over the course of a week. No wonder she doesn't remember the ceremony. That's when the truth came out. The Dreamweaver's brew wasn't just some calming herbal tea. It was a powerful ceremonial drink that, when consumed in large quantities, created this dreamlike state where your subconscious mind took over completely. Apparently, Chloe had walked herself to the beach at sunrise, participated in an entire wedding ceremony with Liam, exchanged vows in some ancient language she didn't even know she knew, and sealed their soul bond with a kiss, all while her conscious mind was basically offline. So you're telling me that my subconscious got married while I was unconscious, she said slowly. Essentially, yes, Elder Solana said gently, though I must say your spirit was quite eloquent. Your vows moved even me to tears. Chloe sat down hard in the sand. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. She had a real wedding in 2 days. She had a real life waiting for her. She had vendors to pay and guests flying in from across the country and a fiancé who was probably wondering where she was. I need to call Liam. Her phone was dead. Completely dead. The island has a way of disconnecting us from the outside world. It allows the soul to focus on what truly matters. What truly matters is getting me off this island and back to my real wedding. But Leo stepped forward, and something in his expression made her pause. Chloe, I know this seems crazy. I know you're scared and confused. But what if this isn't a mistake? What if your subconscious knew something your conscious mind was too afraid to admit? And for just a moment, looking into his eyes, she felt this flutter of something, this recognition, like maybe she'd been looking for him her whole life without even knowing it. Then reality crashed back in. No, she said firmly. No, this is not some romantic fate destiny bullshit. This is a mistake, and I need to fix it now. But Elder Solana shook her head. I'm afraid it's not that simple, child. The soul tie ceremony cannot be undone lightly. The island has accepted your union. To leave without completing the 7 sacred steps would bring terrible imbalance to both your spirits. What kind of imbalance? Chloe asked, though she really didn't want to know. Eternal restlessness, Aunt Maeve said dramatically. Chronic bad luck, the inability to find true love ever again. Your aura would be forever clouded with, Okay. Chloe held up her hands. How long do these 7 sacred steps take? Leo and Elder Solana exchanged a look. 7 days, Elder Solana said. 7 days. Her wedding was in 2 days. I want to tell you that Chloe handled this news gracefully, that she took it in stride and made the best of an impossible situation. She did not. She had what can only be described as a complete and total meltdown. She cried, she screamed, she threw sand. She demanded to speak to whoever was in charge of this island because this was insane, and she had rights, and there had to be some kind of magical customer service department she could complain to. Elder Solana waited patiently for her to exhaust herself, then said, Are you finished? For now, Chloe said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Good. Leo will explain the 7 sacred steps. I suggest you approach them with an open heart, child. The island has brought you here for a reason. And then she just glided away into the forest like some kind of mystical woodland creature. Leo sat down in the sand beside her, careful to leave some space between them. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I really thought you understood what was happening. I would never have... I'm not the kind of person who would trick someone into marrying me. Something in his voice made her look at him. He seemed genuinely distressed, and paint stains on his fingers that somehow made him seem more human and less like part of this magical weirdness. What are the steps? She asked with a sigh. Well,
he said, pulling out a piece of bark with symbols carved into it. First is the dawn walk. We walk in silence through the whispering forest to find the glowing moss that only appears at sunrise. Glowing moss. Of course, there's glowing moss. Then there's the truth painting. We paint each other's true essence using pigments from the island. I can't paint. That's kind of the point. It's not about skill, it's about seeing. What do you mean, seeing? When you paint someone, really paint them, you have to look at them, not just glance, but actually see them. Most people go their whole lives without being truly seen by another person. The way he said it made something flutter in her chest, but she pushed it down. What else? She asked. Well, he said, pulling out a piece of bark with symbols carved into it. First is the dawn walk. We walk in silence through the whispering forest to find the glowing moss that only appears at sunrise. Glowing moss. Of course, there's glowing moss. Then there's the truth painting. We paint each other's true essence using pigments from the island. I can't paint. That's kind of the point. It's not about skill, it's about seeing. What do you mean, seeing? When you paint someone, really paint them, you have to look at them. Not just glance, but actually see them. Most people go their whole lives without being truly seen by another person. The way he said that made something flutter in her chest, but she pushed it down. What else? She asked. Well, the dance of harmony, learning a traditional dance with the island community, the feast of gratitude, we help prepare a meal for everyone and share what we're grateful for. The star telling, we lie under the stars and tell each other our deepest dreams and fears. The water blessing, we swim together in the sacred cenote and ask the water spirits to bless our union. And finally, the choice ceremony, where we decide if we want to make our soul bond permanent or release each other with love. That doesn't sound terrible, she admitted.
It's not meant to be terrible, Leo said gently. It's meant to help two people really get to know each other, to see if their souls are truly compatible. But I don't want to be compatible with you, she said, though it came out less forceful than she intended. I'm in love with Liam. Leo was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, Are you? Or do you love the idea of the life he represents? The question hit her like a physical blow because it was the same thing she had been trying not to ask herself for months. That's not fair, she whispered. I'm not trying to be unfair. I spent 3 years traveling the world, Chloe. I met a lot of people who were living lives they thought they should want instead of lives they actually wanted. And they all had the same look in their eyes that you had at the rehearsal dinner. What look? Like they were droning. They started with the dawn walk the next morning. Chloe had slept in this beautiful little hut made of woven palm fronds, with the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced, and the sound of gentle waves lulling her to sleep. When she woke up before sunrise, Leo was waiting outside with fresh fruit and coffee that somehow tasted better than anything she had ever had. Ready? He asked. No, she said, but let's get this over with. The whispering forest was magical. There's no other word for it. The trees seemed to murmur secrets to each other, and the air shimmered with this otherworldly light. They walked in silence as requested, and gradually the constant chatter in her head began to quiet. She found herself really noticing things, the way the light filtered through the leaves, the sound of their footsteps on the moss-covered path, the way Leo moved with this natural grace like he belonged in the forest. And then they found it, the glowing moss. It was growing on an ancient tree trunk, pulsing with this soft blue-green light that looked like captured starlight. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Make and wish, Leo whispered. Without thinking, she closed her eyes and wished for clarity, for the courage to figure out what she really wanted instead of what she thought she should want. When she opened her eyes, Leo was looking at her with this expression of wonder, like she was the most fascinating thing he had ever seen. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said softly. You glow when you're not trying to be perfect." The truth painting was intense. Leo set up these makeshift easels on the beach with paints he somehow made from flower petals and clay and other island materials. The colors were unlike anything she had ever seen. Deep oceanic blues, sunset oranges, greens that seemed to pulse with life. "I told you, I can't paint," she said, staring at the blank canvas. "Don't paint what you think I look like," Leo said, already mixing colors on his palette. "Paint what you feel when you look at me." What she felt when she looked at him, that was dangerous territory. But she picked up a brush anyway. At first, she was self-conscious and kept trying to make it look right. But Leo was so absorbed in his own painting, humming softly under his breath, occasionally glancing up at her with this focused intensity that made her stomach do little flips. Gradually, she stopped thinking and started feeling. She painted swirls of warm brown for his eyes, streaks of gold for the way the sun caught his hair, deep blues and greens for the calmness he seemed to carry with him, bright oranges and yellows for the creativity that seemed to radiate from him like heat. When they were both finished, they turned their canvases around. His painting of her took my breath away. It wasn't realistic, it was more like a feeling made visible. He'd painted her as this figure of light emerging from darkness, with colors that seemed to move and shimmer on the canvas. She looked strong and beautiful and free in a way she'd never seen herself. "Is that how you see me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper.
"That's who you are when you stop trying to be someone else," he said. She looked at her painting of him, wild and abstract, but somehow capturing something essential about his spirit, and realized she'd been seeing him more clearly than she'd ever seen anyone. By the fourth day, something had shifted. Chloe had stopped thinking about Liam every 5 minutes. She'd stopped mentally planning how to fix the situation. She was just present, living in each moment as it came. The dance of harmony was ridiculous and wonderful. The island community welcomed them with such joy and warmth, teaching them this intricate dance that required them to move as one person. Leo was patient when she stepped on his feet, laughing when she got the steps wrong, and when they finally got it right, when they moved together in perfect synchronization, it felt like flying. The feast of gratitude made her cry. Sitting around the fire with these beautiful people who'd welcomed her like family, sharing stories and laughter and the most incredible food she'd ever tasted. When it was her turn to share what she was grateful for, she found herself saying, "I'm grateful for being lost, because I think I'm finally finding myself." Leo squeezed her hand, and she didn't pull away. The star telling was when everything changed. They were lying on their backs on the beach, the Milky Way stretched out above them like a river of diamonds. Leo had been telling her about his childhood, about always feeling like he didn't quite fit in the regular world, about his dream of creating art that could heal people's hearts. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you dream about when no one's watching?" And she found herself telling him things she had never told anyone, about how she'd always wanted to travel but convinced herself it was impractical, about how she loved to write poetry but stopped because Liam said it was just a hobby, about how sometimes she felt like she was disappearing, becoming smaller and smaller to fit into the life everyone expected her to live. "Why did you stop writing?" Leo asked. "Because it wasn't realistic, because it wouldn't pay the bills or impress anyone at dinner parties." "But did it make you happy?" "Yes," she whispered. "It made me feel alive." "Then why isn't that enough?" She turned to look at him, and in the starlight, his face was so open and honest and kind that it made my chest ache. "Maybe that's why you're here," he said softly. Maybe your subconscious knew you needed permission to want something different. Leo, she said, and her voice came out shaky, I think I'm falling in love with you. He turned toward her, his hand reaching up to cup her cheek. I think I fell in love with you the moment I saw you on that balcony looking like you were about to jump. This is crazy, she whispered. The best things usually are. And then he kissed her. Not the polite, expected kisses she shared with Liam. This was a kiss that felt like coming home and taking flight at the same time. Like every cell in her body was waking up after a long sleep. When they broke apart, she was crying. What's wrong? Leo asked, worried. Nothing's wrong. Everything is right, and that terrifies me. The next morning, as they were preparing for the water blessing, she heard it. A helicopter.
Chloe's heart sank and soared at the same time as she watched it circle the island before landing on the beach about a quarter mile away. "Chloe!" She heard a familiar voice shouting, "Chloe!" Liam. He came running down the beach in his expensive suit and dress shoes, his phone clutched in his hand, his face red with panic and anger. Behind him were his parents and her maid of honor, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Oh, God," she breathed. Leo took her hand. "It's okay. We'll figure this out." But when Liam reached them, nothing was okay. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, looking between Leo and Chloe like they were insane. "Chloe, you disappeared. We found your phone dead in your hotel room and no trace of where you went. We've been searching for 2 days. Liam, I can explain. And who is this?" He gestured at Leo like he was something disgusting. "Did you run off with some random guy right before our wedding?" "It's not that simple." "It looks pretty simple to me." Liam's voice was getting louder, attracting attention from the island community. "You're wearing a wedding dress and holding hands with another man." Elder Solana appeared, serene as always. "Perhaps we should discuss this calmly." "I don't want to hear from you, lady. I want to hear from my fiancé about why she's apparently lost her mind." That's when something shifted inside Chloe. The old Chloe would have cowered, would have apologized, would have tried to smooth things over and make everyone comfortable. But the new Chloe, the one who'd been painting her feelings and dancing under the stars and kissing Leo like her life depended on it, that Chloe was done shrinking. "Don't you dare speak to Elder Solana that way," she said, her voice steady and strong. "She's shown me more kindness in 5 days than what?" Liam demanded. "Than you've shown me in 3 years. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just gone off. Liam's face went through several emotions: shock, hurt, anger. "What are you talking about? I've given you everything. The perfect ring, the perfect wedding, the perfect life." "Perfect for who?" she asked. "Because it sure wasn't perfect for me." "This is insane," his mother interjected. "Chloe, honey, you're obviously having some kind of breakdown. Let's get you home and we can postpone the wedding until you're feeling better." "I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough." She looked at Liam, really looked at him, and saw not the man she'd convinced herself she loved, but a stranger who'd never really seen her, who never asked her what she dreamed about or what made her happy or what she was afraid of. "Liam," she said gently, "when's the last time you asked me what I wanted? Not what I wanted for our wedding or our house or our future kids, what I wanted for me." He stared at her blankly. You never said you wanted anything different." "Because you never asked, and because I was so busy trying to be the woman you wanted that I forgot who I actually was." Leo stepped forward. "Maybe I should give you some privacy." "No," she said, taking his hand. "You should stay, because this concerns you too." She turned back to Liam. "I'm not coming back. I'm not getting married on Saturday.
I'm sorry, I know this is awful timing, and I know you're hurt and confused, but I can't marry you.
Because of him? Liam pointed at Leo accusingly. Because of me, she said firmly. Because I deserve to be with someone who sees me, really sees me. Someone who asks about my dreams and encourages my poetry and doesn't think my feelings are inconvenient. I never said your feelings were inconvenient. You didn't have to say it. When I told you I was nervous about the wedding, you said I was being dramatic. When I wanted to write, you said it was cute but impractical. When I suggested we travel instead of buying the house right away, you said I was being unrealistic. Liam's face was crumpling. But I love you. You love the idea of me, she said softly. The version of me that fit into your plan. But you never loved the real me because you never bothered to meet her. Her maid of honor stepped forward. Chloe, I know you're scared about getting married, but this is just cold feet. Everyone gets them. This isn't cold feet. This is clarity. She looked around at all of them, Liam with his hurt, confused face, his parents with their obvious disapproval, her maid of honor with her concern, and she felt free. I know this seems sudden and crazy. I know you think I've lost my mind, but for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I've found it. Elder Solana stepped forward. The young woman speaks truth. The island reveals what the heart already knows. This is all mystical nonsense, Liam's father exploded. You can't throw away 3 years and a wedding because of some vacation romance with a hippie. Leo bristled at that, and Chloe felt a surge of protectiveness. Don't call him that, she said sharply. Leo is an artist. He's kind and thoughtful, and he sees beauty everywhere he looks. He's the kind of person who notices when someone is drowning and throws them a lifeline instead of telling them to swim harder. Chloe, Liam said desperately, please, let's just go home and talk about this. Don't make any decisions while you're like this. Like what? Happy? Awake? Alive? She walked over to Liam and took his hands. He looked so hopeful for a moment, thinking she was changing her mind. You're a good man, she said gently. You deserve someone who thinks your life plan is perfect, who wants exactly what you want, who's excited about the future you've mapped out. But that person isn't me. But I love you, he whispered. You love who you thought I was. The real me, the one who writes poetry and wants to travel and believes in magic. I don't think you'd like her very much. She slipped off her engagement ring and pressed it into his palm. I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't marry you. Liam stared down at the ring, then back at her. So that's it? You're choosing him? She looked over at Leo, who was watching with this mixture of hope and terror on his face. I'm choosing me. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what makes me happy instead of what makes sense. The helicopter took off an hour later, leaving behind a lot of hurt feelings and angry family members. Chloe felt terrible about the pain she had caused, but she also felt light, like she'd been carrying a 100-pound weight and finally set it down. Liam and Chloe completed the 7 sacred steps that evening. The water blessing was beautiful, swimming together in this hidden cenote that glowed with bioluminescent plankton, asking the universe to bless whatever came next. And the choice ceremony? They chose each other. Not because they had to, not because it made practical sense, but because when you find someone who sees your soul and loves it exactly as it is, you hold on tight. 6 months later, Leo and Chloe had a real wedding. Not a legal one, they had already done that at a courthouse with Aunt Maeve and Elder Solana as witnesses, but a celebration with their friends and family. Well, most of their family. Liam's side didn't come, obviously. And Chloe's parents took a while to come around, but they did, eventually, when they saw how happy she was. They got married on a beach at sunset, and she wore a flowing dress she actually liked, and instead of traditional vows, they read poems to each other. Her poems, actually. She'd started writing again. Liam sent a card, which was more gracious than he needed to be. He'd met someone new, apparently, someone who thought his life plan was perfect. The best part? They served Aunt Maeve's calming elixir at the reception. The regular version, not the Dreamweaver's brew, although, I have to admit, a few couples asked for the recipe afterward. Here's what Chloe learned from accidentally marrying a stranger on a magical island. Sometimes the thing that seems like the biggest disaster is actually the biggest blessing in disguise. Sometimes your subconscious knows what's good for you better than your conscious mind does. And sometimes, when someone offers you a mysterious glowing drink, you should ask more questions. But mostly, she learned this. You can spend your whole life being practical and responsible and doing what you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, the only person who has to live your life is you. So maybe, just maybe, you should choose the version of your life that makes you happy, even if it starts with waking up married to a stranger on a beach. Oh, and one more thing, Leo never did tell her exactly what was in that Dreamweaver's brew. Aunt Maeve says it's a family secret, but she has her suspicions. Because here's the thing that still gives her chills when she thinks about it. The night before she drank that elixir, she had written in her journal something she hadn't done in months. She had written about feeling trapped, about wanting to run away, about wishing she could just disappear and start over somewhere beautiful and far away. She wrote about wanting to find someone who would see the real her and love her for it. She wrote about dreaming of a life filled with art and poetry and magic instead of spreadsheets and dinner parties and small talk. And then she closed that journal and shoved it in her suitcase, convinced she was just having pre-wedding jitters. But what if the Dreamweaver's brew didn't make her want those things? What if it just gave her the courage to admit she already did? Chloe still has that journal. Leo found it when she was unpacking her things at his place, their place, and he read that entry. He said it was like reading a letter addressed to him from someone he'd never met but had been waiting for his whole life. Maybe that's what real love is. Not finding someone who fits into an existing life, but finding someone who makes you brave enough to build a completely new one. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes the universe has to slip something in your drink to get you to pay attention to what your heart has been trying to tell you all along. So that's Chloe's story. The story of how she accidentally found her soulmate, lost her mind, and discovered that sometimes the most beautiful disasters are actually the luckiest things that ever happened to you. And if you're out there right now feeling trapped in a life that looks perfect on paper but feels wrong in your heart, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what would you do if you were brave enough to choose happiness over security? What would you do if you stopped trying to be who you thought you should be and started being who you actually are?